Welcome back to the Peach Teach English podcast. I'm Frankie Mesmer, your host, and today I'm joined by Inae Lima from Brazil to talk about the interview question, Tell Me About Yourself. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. I'm joined by Inae from Brazil, and we're going to talk about how to answer the interview question, Tell Me About Yourself. But first, we're going to introduce ourselves. So, Inae, can you do that, please?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me. Hello, everyone. I am Inaye Lima. I am a Brazilian educator. I've been teaching for over 20 years, in English for 18 years. Since 2012, I've been running my own school, Our English, which is an online English school. I'm a teacher, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a mother, and many other functions.
A busy woman
A busy woman. Yeah, that's it.
and successful.
Thank you. Thank
Really,
you.
thank you so much for joining me today. And let me introduce
Thank you.
myself for those that don't know me. So, I am Frankie Mesmer. I'm from the United States, and now I live in Colombia. And I've been teaching English for 7 years. And my biggest goal is to help students become confident English speakers for their personal life and their professional life. And that's why we're going to talk about this topic today. Tell me about yourself. It's probably the most common interview question. And many people are confused. How should I answer this? Because we could probably say a lot of things to describe ourselves, but really we need to fit it in about a 2 minute response. So this can be tricky for many people. So let's go ahead and look at some tips and advice to help you guys answer this question. To get started, we need to identify what is the interviewer really asking when they say, Tell me about yourself. What would you say, Inae, the interviewer really wants to know?
I think that first and foremost, we needed to remember one thing. It's an English job interview. It's professional, right? So then maybe this is what they want to know. Of course, some personal details can be useful. However, this is not exactly the main focus, right? So we needed to try to keep our professional much more highlighted in this kind of situation. Yeah.
I agree completely. They're asking, Who are you professionally? They want to know your
Sure.
experience, your skills. You can mention your achievements. They also want to know what type of person are you to work with. Yeah, so you
Yeah.
can mention a little bit of like your work personality in that answer.
We
But
have to remember that this is about your job. So, of course, that some like personality traits will be influencing that, but we needed to be very careful about the things that we are going to say, right?
yes, really, everything you mention needs to be related to your professional self, right?
Mm-hmm.
And also, maybe something that gets left out of a lot with this question, they also want to know, like, why am I talking to you today? Why are
For
you
sure.
here? So you need to tell
Mm-hmm.
them, why do you want this job? And why would they want to give you this job? What can you do for their company or their business or their clients? So
Mm-hmm.
I would say those are the
Yeah, for
most
sure.
important things we need to remember. Who are you professionally? What type of person are you to work with? And what can you offer to this company? Yeah.
Exactly. That's it in our country. One situation is having an English job interview when you are thinking of a Brazilian company. So it's a vacancy in a Brazilian company or a company that is based in Brazil. In other situation is when you are really applying for international vacancy in other companies, remotely or whatever. So when we have this first situation, great part of the recruitment process is done in Portuguese. So when it comes the English job interview, many times with this only question, tell me about yourself, what they want to know is how good you are in your communication in another language. And then, of course, that we are thinking here about discourse management and many other things, but we have to take that into consideration too. Yes, bringing these characteristics are essential for that.
Would you say that if you're just doing an English interview where they're just trying to figure out your English level and communication skills, would you answer this question differently?
Not exactly differently, but some of them, they expect a little bit of your personal life, but again, personal life that can be connected somehow to professional issues.
And do you think in that style of interview they ask different types of questions?
They do, yeah. It really depends on the kind of company and the kind of vacancy, but they can ask you, maybe this is just the cliche one, like the open question that they ask, and how you can manage your communicative skills to be at the same time having an efficient communication and also being straight to the point. So they are also measuring and assessing that.
I am curious here, just like cultural differences, perhaps.
Yes.
I feel like in a lot of English speaking cultures, we are very direct to the point, especially in business. We don't want to be wasting time. We really
Exactly.
believe time is money. And do you feel it's the same in Brazilian interviews, or is there more like just casual dialogue?
No, I think that it's more like straight to the point. But other questions they will be asked as well, and they will be expecting other kind of answers too.
No, it's always important to take in account the cultural aspect,
For
especially of
sure.
the company, right?
That's it. It's a point. Like that's why it's so important knowing the company that you are applying for. So you needed to know about the culture of this company.
One of my students recently is applying for a job for an Indian company, and he was mentioning the Indian business culture a lot. He was
Mhm.
smart in the sense that he was studying that. So, yeah, we need to look at the company culture too. Moving on to the next question. Okay. So, Inai, what should be included in your answer for tell me about yourself?
I think that it's showing yourself as a professional and showing your professional skills that fit to the vacancy that you are applying for. I think that this is the key point. And of course, that there are some things that you can highlight, yes. And for example, achievements that you had, and I don't know, for example, how you manage a difficult situation. So you needed to bring skills that are matching what that company is requiring for that job. Yeah. And of course, that you needed to think about organizing. So you needed to structure this answer. One thing that I really enjoy, I don't know if you agree with me, but it's making use of a STAR method. It can be a very useful tape, yeah, because that is other thing, right? So being clear and objective about what you were saying.
No,
Yeah.
I agree. The STAR method is an excellent strategy to follow. Would you like to explain the STAR method for our audience if they don't know what it is?
Yes, of course. The STAR method, a STAR, in fact, is an acronym that stands for situation, task, action, and result. The main idea is you were asked a question, and then you can bring a situation related to that, the task, like that you had to do at a determined moment in your career, the action which was taken, and also the results that you brought to that company, right? So for example, this is very useful when you are asked like questions such as, oh, what is the biggest challenge that you've had in your previous job, for example? That it's a common question that we see in some recruitment process here, right? So this kind of organization, it's really important, right?
Yes. And I think the main idea of the STAR method is you're doing more than just saying, hey, I'm hardworking. Hey, I have good time management skills. Hey, I'm good at problem solving. Anybody can say they are good at these things, but when we use the STAR method, we're telling it with a story or an example or with numbers, and now it becomes believable. And that's why it's important to use this STAR method or at least some parts of it to
Yeah.
create a very strong answer. And I really like what you said, Inae. We really need to look at that job description. And of course, you could have every single skill, experience, qualification that they're looking for, but you're not going to mention all of them in your tell me about yourself answer.
Of course, no. Yeah.
But I would recommend looking for at least a couple things on that list and make sure you include it in your tell me about yourself answer because they're looking at many people and they took the time to make that description. And if your answer shows I'm the guy you're looking for, they're more likely to call you back or give you that job. You really need to pay attention to the job description and make your answer match it.
I think for answers in general, so I'm a big fan of the STAR method because I think that it really helps us to structure our mind, our answers. Other thing, it's like for those who are not exactly non-native English speakers, of course, studying the vocabulary of your field. I think that it can be very interesting, like in knowing the words, knowing collocations that they are using. These are some kind of information that you can get even from the job description when they ask those kind of skills, and then if you can bring this kind of vocabulary, I think that it's also interesting. One thing that I always tell the students is that having an intelligible speech, it doesn't mean that you cannot make small mistakes. Yeah, so many people, they feel very afraid about the perfectionism in this kind of interviews. But like those kind of small mistakes, for example, changing prepositions from in on, once that they don't change the message that you want to get across, like these kind of mistakes, they will not underestimate like you as a professional. So it's okay, of course, be careful with them, yeah, but it's not exactly about having the perfect speech. Yeah, it's about having good communicative skills. That's it.
I think this is something that I've been talking about a lot lately. Recently, I did a topic about how not to feel nervous. And one of the main ideas is focus on the message more than being perfect. And that's
Yeah.
really what you're saying here. The same thing with your pronunciation or accent. If you're so worried about pronouncing every word perfectly correct, you might start getting the words confused in your head.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
really just focus on what is my message and how am I going to communicate that. And of course,
Mhm.
try to reduce your mistakes as much as possible, pronounce everything correctly, but don't
Mhm.
stress about it.
Yeah, for sure. It's a situation that gets us nervous. Even if the interview it's out in our mother tongue, you are going to feel nervous because it's the idea that you were being assessed, and like that new opportunity, it's on their hands. So you were being judged, you were being assessed. So it's not exactly a very comfortable situation, right? And then we also have the language issue.
It becomes double stress, right? There's the
Yeah,
stress
for sure.
of just can I get this job? And then there's the stress of is my language going to be enough? So you
Mm-hmm,
really do need
mm-hmm,
to learn how to calm those nerves, right? And of
mm-hmm.
course, with preparation and practice, it can help a lot. But you'll probably still be a little bit nervous
Will,
the
and that's
day.
okay. But it's trying to make it less painful.
Mm-hmm.
And
Exactly.
for some, even less traumatic, because some experiences can be traumatic for some people, right?
Oh, I'm sure
So,
there are people who've had traumatic interview experiences. I've had one. I'm not going to get into it today. But
okay.
yes, they can be traumatic sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, they can.
After we're looking at that job description, you need to really question, what relevant experience do I have? What relevant skills do I have? Do I have any specific achievements that show my experience and skills? And
Mhm.
you need to show your excitement for the role and how you're going to be an asset to that company. So you really need to include all of these things in your answer.
Mhm. When you mention about the relevant information, this is fundamental because, like, we just have some time. It's what you said in the beginning. Like, you were going to think about answering around 2 minutes. So, if you bring lots of irrelevant information, it will be endless. And then you go rambling, and then you get lost, and then, like, you just make things worse. So if you try to just focus on that relevant information, it's much better. And that is the thing about studying that job description beforehand.
Exactly. Let's talk
Uh-huh.
about what not to do. The first thing is don't ramble and don't mention all of your work experience you've ever had. This is not your chance to tell your whole professional story. You need to focus on what we're saying here, that relevant information. I've been an English teacher for 7 years. They don't have to know about every job I've ever had. I've worked in public schools, private
Mm-hmm,
institutes, and
mm-hmm,
online platforms, but I don't have
mm-hmm.
to give every detail
For
about
sure.
all the jobs I've ever had. So
If some detail that you don't mention, it's important for them, they will ask you.
yeah, so really just focus on what part of your job experience and achievements are relevant. Don't
Mm-hmm,
ramble. We really
mm-hmm,
need to keep it in about 2 minutes, right?
mm-hmm.
Is there another thing you would say don't do?
Negative criticisms of previous companies and previous jobs. Yeah, even if you have any kind of bad experience, and if you believe that it's suitable to mention it, try to make it a little bit better in terms of the kind of words that you choose about that. But it's, of course, better trying to avoid.
Yeah, we need to mention why we're interested in this new position,
Exactly.
but you definitely don't want to be saying the reason is because of your bad job.
Or your bad balls. Yeah. If there's in moment that you needed to mention something, like for example, if it happens that they ask why are you leaving the job that you are now or the previous job, you can make it beautiful. Oh, I don't know, like I've been looking for other opportunities. I think that I had already contributed to everything that I could at that company and this kind of things, right? But don't say bad things about them.
Yeah, it's better to shift to that growth mindset, right?
Exactly.
I'm
Exactly.
looking for something new. I'm ready to grow in my career
Yeah.
and focus
Mm-hmm.
on this new opportunity and how it's going to help you. Don't stay in that negative
Exactly.
place. I
Yeah, exactly.
and we mentioned this a little bit, right? We need to avoid talking about our personal life. They're not
Mm-hmm.
asking about your family. They're not asking about your hobbies, what you do in your free time, all of these
Mm-hmm.
things. Really focus on
Mm-hmm.
your professional self. I
You
have
mentioned
one more. Be confident, but not arrogant. Yeah,
oh, this is good. I like that.
nobody likes an arrogant guy. And maybe it can be
Uh-huh.
tricky to find that balance, but someone that comes
Mm-hmm.
in, I know I'm the best guy. Don't even look at the other people. This is actually a question I always like to ask my students. How can someone be confident without being arrogant? And my biggest advice is it's always just good to remain humble and remember where you started. Nobody comes out
Great.
of their mama just super successful or an
For
expert at
sure.
something. You work
Mm-hmm.
hard for where you are at right now. And you can show that in your answer as well. I think people
Mm-hmm.
like to hear your story. if it's relevant.
If it's relevant, storytelling, it's always good. We know that.
And it's more
For sure.
interesting. They don't want to hear just a list of all your achievements. They want to hear a story.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you have any insights about being confident but not arrogant?
I think that it's about keeping the balance. And then even for some people, it's confident, arrogant, and then not so confident. If it's a more insecure person, it will be more difficult for this person as well.
Yeah, that's the other thing. We could flip it.
That is the opposite. Yeah, that's it. So it's other exercise you also needed to practice a bit.
Yeah, don't put yourself down.
Exactly. The thing it's about not overestimating or underestimating. It's like keeping the balance. Try to find this balance. Maybe this is the hardest part.
I've listened to some speakers and they're always making comments, and I guess they're trying not to seem arrogant, but it's almost like you're putting yourself down. I'd rather hear you be confident in what you do. And I think in an interview, that's what they want to see. Moving on to the next section, what tips and strategies do you have to help students prepare for an English interview answering? Tell me about yourself.
Practicing. The only way. It's like many times is writing down like keywords to help you and try to bring the idea. For example, even if they are telling a story, what are the parts of the story that you would like to mention? Not exactly writing an essay like read answers, because like we will not be memorizing like a full sentence or something like that, but keep in mind what are the parts that I would like to mention, and then connect all these parts in a story, for example, right? So maybe writing could be the first part, but it's practicing, it's speaking and telling this story as much as you can, and in front of a mirror. There's something that I really like to do with my students is I always ask them to record themselves so they can even listen to them, and I ask them for their assessment about themselves as well. Of course, trying to keep this balance. And this is what I say, come on, be nice to yourself. Yes. If you were the recruiter, think about a recruiter now. You are a recruiter, just change a position here, go to other place, see yourself with other eyes. It's not yourself anymore. These are kind of practices and exercises that I usually do with them. And they work. They work.
Oh yeah, like looking at yourself in the mirror or recording yourself. It can be really uncomfortable if you're not used to doing this kind of thing. But it's really one of the best strategies, because also when it comes to interviews, it's about your posture, your confidence.
Your body language in general, yeah, because your body will speak, right? So there's a lot about that. So I highly recommend them doing that.
Yeah, so you can help them correct that body language.
For sure.
And I always love with any student, whatever the topic it is, that self-evaluation. Oftentimes I think because when you hear a person criticize you, it's hard. Yeah. And so sometimes if you can do it first, they're more receptive to that kind of criticism. Of course, we all need to be ready to hear criticism, but I like to give the person the chance to self evaluate first. As we mentioned, you got to look at that job description, read it. I'd say underline, circle, highlight, whatever skills you have that's on that paper, and then take a notebook or a piece of paper and write those down. And then ask yourself some good questions. What is my relevant experience for these things? What are my achievements that show these things? And not just any achievement. If it's possible, find achievements that you can show through numbers. Maybe you got a recognition or an award. Maybe it's something your coworkers or your boss say about you, but something that really shows that this is true. And that final question, right? Like, why do I want this job? And what can I do for this company? And really, you show that relevant experience. You show what you can do for the company through your skills and achievements. And you show your excitement to be there and get that job. And you'll really have a strong answer. So I would say write down these questions.
And
Could
try
help you.
to answer them. Try to think that you, at that moment, you are the recruiter. So what would you ask? What kind of answers are you expecting? Like this kind of things.
Exactly. Whenever I help a student prepare for an interview, it's like, what questions do you think they're going to ask you? Because there's all kinds of questions. Yeah. But you have to think for this position, what are probably the highest possibility questions they'll ask? And we can prepare for many types of questions, but those are certainly the ones we need to focus on.
Yeah.
And then you're right, flip that role. What kind of answer would you want when you are the recruiter?
Mm-hmm.
It's always good to put yourself in other people's shoes.
For sure.
Yeah. So yeah, like after you answer those questions, we need to form a strong answer that's only about 2 minutes. And then I would say that's when we start practicing the way you said, right? First we prepare and then we practice, right?
And sometimes I really set the time. I put a time here, like you have 2 minutes to explain that. With some, it's not needed, but with some of them, I really set the time and I show them. Sometimes it gets them even more nervous, but it's important. And it's what I say when we are practicing for international certificates like this. We have to set the time and speak in that time that they give. It can be uncomfortable sometimes, but I think that it's needed for the very first beginning. Like just for you to understand how much you can expand.
And maybe we need to take out some details, or maybe we need to give more details depending on how much they're saying.
Yes,
No,
yes.
I think getting that timer out is necessary just to see how long your answer is. I agree. Yeah. And of course, if possible, it is good to hire a coach who can help you create a strong answer, tell you, I think you can improve here, and also just to practice with so we can correct your grammar if needed, your pronunciation. Because as we said, the message is the most important, right? But if you are making serious grammar issues or you have bad pronunciation, your message will get lost.
You needed to have an effective communication.
Yeah. So if you have that coach, you can double check that your message is clear.
For sure.
You can use what's called the present, past, future method. This is a nice method because it's a way to tell your story. And it might be something the interviewer is not expecting, because a lot of people start with their past. So it can throw them off. Ooh, this is interesting. Because really, what's most important is your now. Like, what can you do now, right?
No. Yeah.
So you can share what you're doing at your current position, what responsibilities you're doing now, what skills you're gaining from this current place. And then you can go back to the past a little, just to what's relevant for this position, but you don't have to go all the way back to the beginning. And then you can finish with the future, which is, what are your goals? Why are you here today? Why should we give you this position?
Interesting. I love it.
Yeah, so that's another way you can try to form your answer. Present, past, future. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Guys, so we're going to open up the room to questions or more tips. If other people have some more tips,
perfect.
We'd love to hear it. So does anybody have any questions or tips?
Thank you. My name is Juan. Nice to meet you. I have a question for you. What do you think about the soft skills?
Good question. It's something that it's been really asked nowadays. And if you can even bring this kind of soft skills and answers like in English questions, it's really interesting. There are some companies, for example, that they really ask What are the soft skills that you think you have that you needed to develop, or that you were not so good, you think you should be? Yeah, it's something that many times for many companies, the soft skills, they become even more important than hard skills. Because what some say, it's that like hard skills, it's something that with practice and training you can teach. And soft skills, it's something that it takes longer. So if you have something about that it's already developed, it's better, but it's something that they have been really looking for.
Yes, great question, Juan. Juan, what are your soft skills?
My soft skills. Wow.
It's a difficult question to answer.
Yeah, for me, I don't know. I passion. I think my communication is easy. I listen with my partner. I work in my team. I like cross culture.
I think some of your soft skills is you're a great leader. You have a lot of enthusiasm and you know how to motivate yourself. I think you know how to motivate others. I believe you have great leadership skills.
I work with different peoples with different age, children, adults. I like different topics.
And you're very good at self-learning because, like I said, you motivate yourself, you find solutions, you're not dependent on others to lead you. So you have a lot of great qualities, Juan. Thank you for sharing. Do we have any other questions or tips? Go ahead, Johan.
Hi, glad to meet you. My name is Johan. I'm greeting from Colombia. For example, could you tell me about yourself? It's typical in Colombia, start talking about the studies, the family, the accomplishment, work experience, and the end talking about your goals, reports with the company, where are you applying for the position. In my case, I try to talk about my weaknesses, strengths, and always talk with confidence and without fear. Example, the talk of the meeting you did a few days ago about speaking without fear. It's very important to talk without fear. One way that I think is very important for the interview, my advice is to find out about the company that you are applying to at the moment, because in most cases they ask you, what do you know about us?
Those are great tips, Johan. It's more than just reading the job description, right? It's also looking into the company, trying to understand the culture, especially if they ask you that question, you need to be able to answer it. I have had job interviews in my younger days where they asked me that question and I knew nothing about the company and it was very uncomfortable. So you need to be ready for that question. And they did ask me that question here in Colombia. What do you know about our company? So really great advice. Thank you.
Talking about that, other tip here that I share, it's what you said, not only reading the job description, but like searching, working, and get information about the company. And one thing that it's good as well is asking questions. You, as a candidate, ask questions based exactly on this research, on everything that you have also learned about the company. It's also possible. And recruiters, they like that because it's like the impression is, oh, this person knows, like this person has studied, has researched about this company, so they know why they are here. So it's also other possibility, right?
It shows your interest in that company.
Exactly.
Do we have anyone else with tips or questions?
I just wanted to introduce myself because Juan and Johan, they asked the right questions here, and Inaye covered it all. And also you, Frankie, by pointing to the right questions. My name is Alexandre. I'm a teacher trainer from Brazil. So nice to meet you, Inaye.
Friend,
It's great to be here.
Great to be
And I would like to point to two things you said that are really important: to write down and answer yourself the questions. Because if you work hard with the questions, you're not going to do it right the first time. So the paper will tell you about your evolution. And I would point to just one tip. Try to reduce to between 12 to 15 words per. So you create like blocks in the vertical. Instead of writing in the horizontal, write your answers in the vertical and try using flashcards. So you reduce the number of words and information you have to focus on. Maybe the verbs are the most important thing. But more importantly, I would like to thank you, Frankie, for the opportunity, and you, Inaye, for the spot-on tips. It was amazing. Very good tips. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you. You said something that is interesting about the flashcards, and mind maps can be interesting too.
Exactly. Mind map models like circles, diagrams, visuals that create like a workflow of the ideas. Fantastic. And also mnemonics, because it helps with the, for example, if you arrive at the job interview, try to warm up your voice. Create like a hum sound, warm up your voice, because you get nervous and your voice doesn't come out and it's very low. So you need to show an intensity, like let's just say an emotional response with your tone of voice.
And Alexandre, I have a question for you. And Inaye talked about it a little, but would you like to add maybe how the Brazilian culture could have an influence on how you answer this question or job interviews?
Yeah, I would say that I've been preparing some people for the job market for quite some time. And I noticed that there's a difference in what Inaye pointed. In the past, you would have, for example, you would talk about soccer, you would talk about, it would be like small talk. Nowadays, companies have a more American, let's put it this way. It's different, it's straight to the point. So you arrive, you cover like the 3 questions and there's not much talk. And that makes candidates a little bit uncomfortable because we are more talkative. We like talking about, Johan said, it's interesting that in Colombia, you talk about the family because it's in the best interest of the company to know if you have stability at home, if you have problems and things related to, let's just say, family issues, let's put it this way. So Brazilian people like getting into this aspect sometimes, but I think companies are more international now.
Thank you. Go ahead, Juan.
Okay, I have interviewed young people to integrate them into work teams, and I usually classify them as follows. For example, common question, strengths, what is the motivation? What about, Inaye, what do you consider your 3 greatest strengths?
It's trying to be genuine about who you are. This is the most important thing. I would say I'm a very welcoming professional. So I think that I really want to make you feel comfortable. So this is one of the strengths that I would say. I'm really organized about everything. So in terms of planning, in terms of having a plan, like everything I do, it's because I have a plan. And then it comes on the other part, what? My weakness. Because what is that? Trying to be more flexible about things that it's related to improvisation, right? That, and I think that maybe I'm very enthusiastic of getting to know more each time. So I am the person that like to study. If I don't know, I will try to look for and search like what I can do and how I can do, and that's it.
And I think you made a good point. I always like to say this. Oftentimes, our greatest strength influences our greatest weakness, right?
For sure.
This is such a great way to answer what is your greatest weakness question. You can easily balance it back with your strength and also how you're trying to work on it. But that way you don't just look like super
yeah,
weak.
superhero, or yeah, exactly, or super weak. Yeah, that's it. Because this is not true. Like, this is not genuine, because we are always gonna have the very good part and the part that is not so good. And the part that is not so good in terms of weaknesses, I think that what they expecting from us, it's being honest about that, and more than just telling, oh, I am not good about that, but what have you been doing to try to improve?
It sounds like I want to hire you for an interview prep class. Great answer. I loved it. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, Juan
Thank you,
put you on the
Luan.
spot and you performed very well. Good job. Johan, do you want to say something?
No, this is for me. In my case, they break the ice with some joke before the interview.
You can show a little bit of your personality in that way. It's good to also practice your greeting too, right? Like, how are you going to maybe shake hands? What are you going to say when you're there? That's also smart to consider. Do we have any other questions or tips?
Could you give me a recommendation when they ask me the weaknesses?
I think it is smart to really brainstorm this question because, as Inai says, we want to be honest. But you also don't want to show a weakness that's going to make you look bad in the interview either, that makes you an unattractive choice. So I'd really make a list. And then after you have that list of some of your weaknesses, you also need to see how you can change it from like a negative point to a growth point where you can say, I recognize this is my weakness, but I'm doing this to improve. Or as I mentioned before, oftentimes your strengths and weaknesses are connected. So you can start with a strength and show your weakness and then talk about how you're trying to improve. But really, at the end of the day, mention it, be honest, and show how you're working on doing better. That's what I would recommend, Johan.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Lot.
Go ahead,
Sorry.
Juan.
Imagine about the jobs you have enjoyed the most. Frankie, tell me about the jobs you have enjoyed the least. Frank, what jobs did you specifically like or dislike? Or get to know the organization and align your personality, goals, knowledge, and values with it.
Those can be tricky questions, right? But as we mentioned, anytime they're asking us questions that might go negative, right? What is your greatest weakness? Why did you quit your last job? Why did you get fired? Tell me about a conflict. What job didn't you like? Like, you have to be genuine and honest and answer this question, but I'd really keep it short on the complaining and focus on why you liked another job better. Yeah.
Yeah. And also what you said, like keeping short, like about the complaining, and if possible, what are the lessons learned?
Ooh, that's good.
By that, for example, if it's possible. Yeah, depending on the question, but it's about that, like trying to complain less and focus more on, for example, what you said, what it was good, or what are the lessons that I've learned from that, and so on.
That was beautiful, Inai. Very wise. Guys, we're going to go ahead and wrap up here. Okay. So, Inai, would you like to share about your business a little bit?
Yeah, as I told, it's been 12, almost 13 years that I've been running my own school. Our English, it's Inaye Lima _ our English on Instagram for those who are interested, also LinkedIn. But it's like that. Our core business are our tailor-made individual programs, in which comprises courses in general English, business English, traveling. And we've been specializing on intermediate students, those who find themselves like stuck on intermediate levels. And recently, we've added an English job interview mentoring program for those who want to go through English job interviews.
Guys, just to finish here, I would say please follow Inaye on LinkedIn, Instagram, contact her if you're interested in improving your English. I know she will help you out so much. So I also can help you guys with interview preparation, business English. A lot of my classes are conversation based too. So if you're looking to build your English speaking skills, I will correct you and help you become more confident as you speak the language. And I will offer you a free class just so I can answer your questions and tell you more about the types of classes that I can offer you. I did write this blog post, and it's basically a guide to help you answer this tell me about you question, who are preparing for interviews or will prepare in the future. And I recommend that you subscribe to my community here so that you can get more tips. You can come to the next events. And really, thank you so much for being here with me today. Have a good night, guys. Bye.
Guys, thank
Thank
you.
you.